He has no armor, no god-level strength, no billions of dollars. And yet the smartest minds in the Marvel Universe consider him one of the most dangerous beings alive. Iron Man ran the numbers. Captain America gave his assessment. Both of them reached the same terrifying conclusion about a 17-year-old from Queens. He's been beaten, broken, and left for dead more times than any hero on the roster. And every single time he puts the mask back on, his powers sound simple on paper. Strength, wall crawling, web slinging. But the biology behind what that radioactive spider actually did to Peter Parker is something almost everyone gets wrong. By the end of this video, you will never look at Spider-Man the same way again. This is HeroLore, and this is why Peter Parker is the most dangerous Avenger. Let's start where everything begins. In 1962, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko built a hero whose entire power set came from one moment of biological impossibility, and it changed everything. A radioactive spider bit a 15-year-old kid. That sounds like fantasy, but scientists have spent decades modeling what that bite actually means for human biology, and the results are staggering. Spiders are pound for pound among the strongest creatures on Earth. Darwin's bark spider spins silk 10 times stronger than Kevlar. A jumping spider can leap 50 times its own body length. Proportional spider strength, scaled to human mass, gives Peter Parker a lifting capacity of approximately 10 tons. That puts him in the same tier as Thor, and he weighs 167 pounds. His reaction speed is equally insane. Spider-Man has been documented reacting in 40 milliseconds. A human eye blink takes 150 milliseconds. He is literally faster than your brain can process the situation. His entire biology was rewritten: muscle density, bone density, cellular repair rate. He absorbs impacts that would shatter a professional athlete. Not because he got lucky, because the spider's venom rewrote his architecture. Wall crawling sounds simple. It isn't. Peter's cells generate van der Waals forces, the same intermolecular bonds that allow geckos to walk on glass. He produces this at will, across any surface. He's not using suction, not using chemicals. His fingertips are forming genuine molecular bonds with any material he touches. MIT researchers cited Spider-Man's fictional biology when developing real-world adhesive technology. His healing factor is almost never discussed, and it's remarkable. Minor wounds close within hours, broken bones within days. In one arc, he regenerated a lost eye. The spider's DNA didn't add powers. It replaced him. That radioactive bite didn't give Peter Parker a few extra abilities. It rewrote him at a cellular level, turning a teenager into something that biologically should not exist. Section 2. The Spider Sense. Of every ability Peter Parker gained that day, this is the one that separates him from every other hero in the Marvel Universe. The Spider Sense is a precognitive neurological system that exists nowhere in natural human biology. It doesn't just warn him of danger. It tells him exactly how to avoid it. His threats in 40 milliseconds before the attack even initiates. The world record for human reaction time has already occurred. Peter fires before the trigger is pulled. It operates in every direction simultaneously. No blind spot. It detects bullets, blades, electricity, and intent, reading micromuscle tension in an opponent's body before their arm has moved an inch. This is why Spider-Man can fight blind. Why he's beaten opponents in total darkness. Why enemies with telepathy, super speed, and invisibility have all failed to land clean hits in close quarters. Think about who has actually managed to touch him in close quarters. Captain America needed the element of surprise at the Leipzig airport and still lost the exchange. The man with no armor outsensed the super soldier. The only things that have reliably disrupted the sense: certain sonic frequencies, symbiote-level emotional trauma, and Peter's own psychological fracturing. His greatest vulnerability has never been physical. It is always mental, which is why Venom is uniquely terrifying. The symbiote evolved from direct contact with Peter Parker. It knows the exact biological frequency to disable his sense. Venom was built, on a cellular level, as his natural predator. But the sense doesn't stay static. It learns. After the events of the other storyline in 2005, his abilities sharpened to a level even he didn't fully understand. That's the arc where his body regrew a lost eye overnight. You cannot train someone to fight like this. The sense isn't a skill. It's a weapon. Every opponent who stepped in thinking they had the edge, it was already over. Section 3. The Intellect. This is where Peter Parker is most dramatically underestimated. He may be the smartest person in any room he walks into. Peter Parker built functioning web shooters as a high school student. He operates at a level that puts him in the same conversation as Reed Richards and Tony Stark, two people who are frequently called the smartest humans alive. The web fluid he invented as a teenager, from scratch, in his bedroom, is one of the most sophisticated polymer compounds in the Marvel Universe. Stronger than steel cable, dissolves in about an hour, so it never litters the city. Invented by a teenager in his bedroom, a compound that in the comics no laboratory, including Stark's, has ever fully replicated. His combat intelligence is extraordinary. Peter processes battlefield information in real time, tracking multiple opponents simultaneously, calculating trajectories, identifying structural weaknesses, and improvising solutions mid-swing. There's a reason Tony Stark flew to Queens and recruited a high schooler before the airport fight in Civil War. The smartest Avenger wanted Parker on his side before anyone else knew the kid existed. Peter's greatest cognitive gift is improvisation. He has defeated opponents with vastly superior power by outthinking them in real time, using his environment, his chemistry knowledge, and physics instincts to manufacture solutions mid-fight. He has defeated the Sinister Six supervillains attacking at once, again and again, not through brute force, but by turning the environment, his chemistry, and their own egos into the trap. The most dangerous thing about Peter's intelligence is what he chooses not to do. He holds back constantly, not because he has to, but because he understands exactly what he is capable of when he doesn't. In the 2012 Ends of the Earth storyline, with the whole planet on the line, Peter stopped holding back and systematically dismantled the entire Sinister Six. When Spider-Man stops holding back, the fight is simply over. The most terrifying thing about Spider-Man has never been what he does. It's everything he deliberately chooses not to do, every single time he walks onto a battlefield. Section 4. The Will. Because nothing we've covered is what actually makes Spider-Man the most dangerous Avenger. His most powerful asset isn't biological, it's psychological. Peter Parker has lost more than any other hero in Marvel history. His parents, Uncle Ben, Gwen Stacy, Captain Stacy, Harry Osborn, Aunt May, across multiple timelines. Every person he has ever loved. After every loss. After every funeral. After every breakdown and every moment of complete psychological devastation, he puts the mask back on. Not because he wants to, because he believes that no one else will. The guilt from Uncle Ben's death is not backstory. It is Peter Parker's operating system. Every criminal he stops, every sacrifice he makes, all of it runs on that one moment he couldn't prevent at 15 years old. Thor has the backing of Asgard. Iron Man has billions and a suit. Captain America has his serum and unbreakable faith. Spider-Man has nothing but conviction, and it has kept him fighting when every rational calculation said stop. When Dr. Octopus took over Peter's body in Superior Spider-Man, he had access to all of Peter's power and none of his limits. His private assessment: Peter was simultaneously weaker and more terrifying than he had expected. Otto Octavius, a genius who had studied Spider-Man for decades, concluded or his intellect. It was a refusal to quit that defied every psychological model he possessed. Justification to kill the Green Goblin dozens of times across 40 years of comics. He has never done it. Not because he lacks the ability, but because he understands exactly what crossing that line would mean. The Green Goblin killed Gwen Stacy, the woman Peter loved, directly in front of him. And Peter Parker still chose mercy. That level of psychological discipline, in that moment, is not weakness. It is the most dangerous form of control. No other Avenger has faced that moment and made that choice. And no other Avenger's enemies have ever truly understood what kind of person they were dealing with, until it was far too late. Section 5. Why all of it adds up to something unprecedented. Each trait alone is impressive. Together, they create something no other hero on the roster can fully claim. Super strength matched with genius intellect. Precognitive reflexes matched with moral restraint. Physical resilience matched with psychological endurance that has no floor. Remove any one element, he's still elite. Together, they are without precedent. Marvel's writers have answered the question of how dangerous he could be, once. In the 1984 Secret Wars crossover, Issue 3, Spider-Man fought the entire X-Men team at the same time. Wolverine, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm, Rogue. He beat all of them. Alone. In about 2 pages. The scene exists for one reason. To show what happens when Peter Parker actually cuts loose. Nobody in that fight could touch him. He has survived in Amazing Spider-Man issue 33 gave comics one of its most iconic sequences ever printed. Peter pinned under half drowned, lifting it off himself 1 inch at a time because Aunt May needed the serum in his hand. Steve Ditko drew that escape across 5 pages. 60 years later, writers are still referencing it. The rubble scene in Spider-Man Homecoming is a direct homage. The universe keeps burying Peter Parker, and he keeps standing up. No other Avenger has fought at every tier of the Marvel power scale. Street-level crime in New York. Cosmic-level threats across dimensions. Temporal conflicts across timelines. Peter Parker has walked into all of it in red and blue spandex, and walked out. Take away Tony's armor, and Iron Man is vulnerable. Take away Thor's hammer, and he's diminished. Take away everything from Peter Parker, his suit, his webs, his equipment, and he is still Spider-Man. There is no version of him that can be dismantled. The most powerful beings in Marvel history have tried to eliminate him. Thanos, the Green Goblin, Morlun, a being who hunts spider totems across dimensions. None of them finished the job. All of them underestimated exactly what they were dealing with. So is Spider-Man the most dangerous Avenger? That depends entirely on what you mean by dangerous. Most powerful in raw force? No. Most likely to end a fight without hesitation? Possibly. Most impossible to permanently stop? Without question. That is the real legacy of Peter Parker. Not the webs, not the sense, not even the genius. It's the fact that after everything the Marvel Universe has thrown at him, he keeps showing up. Every time. No exceptions. Which hero do you think deserves this treatment next? Drop their name in the comments. We read every one, and the most requested heroes get built into our next video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell. HeroLore drops every week, and next week we're going inside a character who makes Spider-Man look restrained. This has been HeroLore. Same time next week, with a different hero, a deeper breakdown, and answers to questions you didn't know you had. Stay dangerous.